Consider the equation x squared equals negative 1. There is no real number whose square is equal to negative 1, so when working only with real numbers, we can say that this equation has no solutions. However, if we extend our number system beyond the real numbers, we can define a new number, I, that is a solution to the equation x squared equals negative 1. That is to say, I takes on the value such that I squared is equal to negative 1. This is the standard definition of what we call the imaginary unit I. The number I is also called an imaginary number, and it's not on the number line of real numbers. I squared equals negative 1 is the formal definition of the imaginary unit I, but we can just think of I as being equal to the square root of negative 1. As you can see, there are no real numbers that are equal to the square root of negative 1, which is why we needed to extend our number systems beyond the real numbers. So we can also multiply the imaginary number I by a real number. So if we have something like 2 times I, that is just equal to 2I, and this is also an imaginary number. We can also multiply a negative number by I, so negative 1 times I is just equal to negative I. In general, any real number multiplied by I is also an imaginary number. So now let's go over how to rewrite the square root of negative numbers as imaginary numbers. The formula we need to use is the square root of negative a is equal to the square root of a times I for all a greater than 0. So this formula applies for all positive values of a. So if we have something like the square root of negative 4, that's just equal to the square root of 4 times I, which is equal to 2I. If we have something like the square root of negative 9, that's just equal to the square root of 9I, which is equal to 3I. If we have the square root of negative 3, that's just equal to the square root of 3 times I. And if we have something like negative square root of negative 5, that's just equal to negative square root of 5 times I, since we have the negative sign outside of the square root. So the last thing we'll cover in this video is addition and subtraction of imaginary numbers. It's possible to combine like terms when we have two imaginary numbers. So if we have something like 2I plus 3I, that's just equal to 5I, since 2 plus 3 is equal to 5. And if we had 7I minus 3I, that would just equal 4I, since 7 minus 3 is equal to 4. If we wanted to simplify something like the square root of negative 16 plus the square root of negative 9, that just equals the square root of 16I plus the square root of 9 times I, and this is just equal to 4I plus 3I, and this just simplifies to 7I, since 4 plus 3 is equal to 7. So in general, AI plus BI, where A and B are both real numbers, is equal to A plus B times I, and AI minus BI is equal to A minus B times I. In the next video, we will cover the powers of I, which occurs when we multiply imaginary numbers with each other.